Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and I'm very excited. I got two fine young men with me tonight. Hey, you guys, I have Patrick Quinlan and Sean Dube. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hey. And I'm going to have to try to be smart, and like when you're speaking, I'll say, by the way, that's Patrick, or by the way, that's Sean.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I guess if you want to do it that way.
And that was in order of what I just said, Patrick and Sean. It was like, it was subliminal.
We could give you an accent or something.
I know, it's funny. Oh, I turned on Do Not Disturb, but my phone was standing. So anyway, let's get in. So you're here for Bro Code. Because Bro Code, by the way, great title.
Thank you.
You know what can I say? Yeah. Yeah, so Bro Code was at Sherman Oaks, not Sherman Oaks. It was at Film Invasion LA in 2023.
Yes, it was.
That was a bad habit of mine. So, and you both are really cool. You both came out a lot and supported other films and came to mixers and stuff. That stuff is always noticed, especially by a festival programmer like me. So it's a pleasure to have you here to talk about Bro Code. Bro Code got a Programmer's Prize.
It did. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Film Invasion LA 2023. And well-deserved, I'd say. Just a really fun film, but also heartfelt.
It is.
And I guess I should say that Sean wrote, produced, and acted in it.
I did.
And Patrick produced and acted in it.
Yep.
So basically, it's your collaboration, and then you guys pulled in Presley as your director?
Well, it was kind of the three of us together. So Presley had approached me being like, hey, I want to film something. Do you have anything? And I had written Bro Code in like 2017 or 2018, something like that. And like that was from, as an actor, you're mostly not working. So in all of that time, I was like, you audition for enough bad things where you're like, I'm pretty sure that I could do a little bit better in some of these cases. Just from, you go through and you read so much different stuff as an actor. And I think it puts you in a unique situation where you get to read a lot of things. You get to work with a lot of directors. You get to work with a lot of other actors and kind of see how things are. And as my first acting teacher would probably tell you, I was going to direct and write at some point anyways. So it was a matter of time. But I got together with a friend of mine when we weren't working and just had a brainstorming day of like, what can we film? What can we make? And I've kind of always taken this approach of like, well, let's not wait for someone else to say yes, because that might not happen as an actor because there's so much out of your control. So let's just start writing it. So we brainstormed a bunch of things. And one of the ideas that I came up with was this, like, what if two guys go camping to help one deal with a breakup, and he finds out that his friend is sleeping with his girlfriend, right? So, and that was kind of where that started. So then I had that sitting around for a bit, and then when Ali said, hey, let's make something, I'm like, hey, I've got this. It'd be cheap. It's COVID friendly at the time, right? That was a consideration. Mm-hmm. We'd just go out and set up a campsite, maybe, work late one night or maybe do it over 2 days. And that would be it. And I had known Patrick because we lived in the same building during COVID. And then I had moved to New Mexico during that time, but we had kept in touch, and he was on another project that I wrote and shot that was like a little web series that was based on Westworld. And but I kind of had him in mind to do something else with him because he had similar kind of thoughts about like, let's just make shit since we're sitting around, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think because of COVID and just being less work than ever before, it became a natural conversation point of, how do you stay creative in these lulls? And right before the world kind of shut down, we had shot pretty creatively. Sean wearing a bunch of hats, this web series, and then we just stayed in touch, checked in over the pandemic, and then figured out how to start filming something about a year into the pandemic.
2021 is when we filmed. So then I had the script kind of sitting around and kind of had the other to people involved, and we called in some other favors with like a sound guy that we knew that was also a grip and had a bunch of access to gear, and we had another producer that was involved, Gabby. She was great. She ended up also working second camera and is credited with second camera, and so then and Presley is also a really talented cinematographer. I'm saying Presley, but he's also known as Ali. So depending on how you know him, I
just know the name Presley from the credits.
So he's credited as Presley, but we know him as Ali, so we'll refer to him henceforth as Ali. But he's a really talented cinematographer as well as a director. So we were like, okay, so if each of us wears several hats, we'll be able to like make this thing happen for relatively cheap. And then we had a friend that had a house in like Arrowhead, so we were like, hey, can we rent this for the night, and we'll use this as like our base camp, and then we'll just go hike out. And fortunately we didn't have to hike very far to find the location, the shooting location.
Right, saved you didn't have to sleep in your cars or whatever.
No, but we were prepared to. We had a tent, so we were
Yeah, you could have just done a camping.
Right, for sure. Just five bodies in a 2-person tent. It would have been awesome.
Well, and before we got to that point, Presley and Sean and I, we had several Zooms.
Yeah.
Sean had the script and the whole arc of the story, and we were feeling it out how we wanted to collaborate, and we did like a Zoom reading, and we'd switched parts at one point, and then we also did a version of, maybe more than once, of reading it and kind of improvising and messing with each other's characters in the script. And then I think you went back to your, final draft or whatever and started incorporating some of those bits in and just, keeping it. We were always looking to how to keep it alive and make it more interesting, since we had probably read it a bunch of times, even though it was a quick shoot.
Yeah, we definitely workshopped it a bit, and was definitely sourcing ideas from improv and from Ali. Had some really great ideas, and some of them I should have taken more seriously at the beginning. It's funny as a writer where you're like, "Oh, this stuff's super important," and then he's been around a little bit longer, so he was like, "Dude, just cut it. It's not. You don't need it."
Yeah, because you guys then went into the edit and found even more. Stuff
so we had filmed this thing over 2 days, and we had filmed in an apartment and stuff in a car, and then we had this going out to the campsite and then camping, and so 2-day shoot that we ended up doing, and 90% of the first day we just didn't need. So, but we found a way to use it. So our first cut was good.
Didn't need as in you shot stuff that didn't work, or
no, it all worked. But it was 28 minutes, so we had a 12-page script that paced out to 28 minutes when we had every joke and bit and whatever in there, because my concern with it early was we're not spending enough time to know they're friends, right? So we're not going to feel that the friendship is there if we don't see what the normal is for these guys, so that way we can fuck with them when they get out to the woods, right? And it's I think if we spend this time investing in their relationship, then we have it, right? And this is thinking as the writer. And on the page, that was the case. Fortunately, Patrick is a great enough actor to make me look what I'm doing, make it look like I know what I'm doing, that the friendship was there clear on the page, right? So, or clear on the screen. So from the first scene that we see them, you're like, oh, these guys are friends. So,
being neighbors in a building is about as close to roommates as you can get, right? You just hang. It was. I would not have been surprised if you'd said you'd been roommates at some point, because your chemistry is palpable. So first scene, 5 seconds in, I assume that these are best friends hanging out.
Yeah, thank you. And that was something that was apparent when we got to the edit. But initially on the page, we were I think we need this, but we didn't. But we were ended up. So what happened is we had a 28-minute rough cut that was it was funny, but it was kind of more of a feature pacing, right, than a short. Right, the short needs to be kind of get in, and get on with it. And so we started cutting stuff and rearranging, and then we ended up with 15 minutes of a very not funny movie. And we're like, fuck, we completely took the life out of this.
Not funny because, look, there are some real themes there is a serious, heartfelt side to it.
Yeah.
So in a way, you explored that more than you wanted to?
I wouldn't say it was more than we wanted to, but, you know, as we were trying to tighten up, like, comedy is so funny and challenging in the way that you kind of have to really tinker with it a lot to, like, what's funny on the set might not be funny in the edit, right? Or what's funny on the page might not be funny on set, and so on and so forth. We've all heard that you, like, make 3 movies, right? The one you write, the one you shoot, and the one you edit. But and that's really true, I think, for comedy, because, like, different jokes work in different mediums. So as we were tightening this up, the rhythm of it made it so the jokes weren't funny. Right. So then we were like, we had a couple moments that were like, we had a couple like well-structured jokes that were going to land regardless. So like there's 2 or 3 of those, but then we're like, but now it's not really funny overall. It's not a comedy. It is kind of like leading more into the drama. The drama was coming to the surface, right, of the piece. So then Ali had a great idea where like there's an argument, you know, 2/3 through, and he's like, what if you like zoom in on their mouth, on like Patrick's mouth as we kind of get into this. So then, you know, we started just playing with editing to like, okay, so how can we give this something that's not just like a traditional...
Right, so like inside Premiere, you started pushing in.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't shot that way.
It wasn't shot that way, yeah. So
that's the great thing about resolution nowadays.
Oh, yeah,
you can do so much more.
For sure. Yeah, and you know, we wanted it to be a little bit grittier, and it totally worked for where we ended up going. But we had this like, all right, we have like a little editing gag that we've worked into this that's like brought us a little bit of lift that we lost cutting the pacing. And it's like, okay, cool. So how can we then alter the structure so we can justify this new editing language that we discovered that works in this story and works really well? So then all of the footage we cut early of like him sulking in his apartment, his buddy in the car, that kind of stuff.
Getting talked into, like, there was a lot of like talking Sean's character into this weekend, like while we're already kind of doing it, like, come on, man. And so like, I mean, to the point where you're like, it justified the turn of like, his friend's maybe an asshole, but like it really made you think about it too, versus the way that you then ended up having flashbacks and other things and little montages that were just like, okay, I get it. These guys are friends. This guy's having a shit day, and now it's just a total surprise, like for everybody. Which was cool.
Yeah, and it forced us to kind of like choose what, like, the way that it was written and the way we shot it was very kind of a two-hander, right? Where we had like, they both kind of change over the course of the story, and the point of view was very much open-ended for both of them. And like through the making it shorter, we had to make some choices like, okay, this is clearly going to be Chris's story, which is the character's name. So like, let's just lean into that, right? So then we were able to use the stuff we cut previously as these like little flashbacks, little montages that were kind of like a little like visual poem of his internal state, right? That they filter throughout and kind of add up, and it worked. That they happen to be funny as well to watch, right? So like then it kind of gave us this that lift again in the piece as we continued to tighten it to get it to its final.
So I mean, this was a really intensive edit. Like it sounds like you really like you discovered the film and then you had to rediscover it, like all digitally on that screen, like on a computer screen. Like it sounds like it was very. How long did all that take? Like, was this like months? Or?
Oh yeah, it was. So I was editing, so it took a long time for a couple reasons. Like, you know, you have life that just gets in the way, and like jobs that actually pay money, and
yeah, in the world, and we got a vaccine, so you could leave home again.
That's right. Yeah, you could leave home, which was really great. But I think for me,
but by the way, bravo that there's no hint of COVID in the film. I appreciate that. That was so super smart because, yeah. I'm glad there's no throwaway line in the beginning, like, I'm so glad we're getting out of the city away from all those masks. You know what I mean? Like, I was so sick of the mask jokes.
Yes.
Like they weren't going to weather well.
No.
And then that was apparent to us, too, and that was a conversation that we had early, and Ali was still on the same page. Was like, let's just not even acknowledge it and just go back to the real world that we'll be in 5 years, and you could still watch this movie and it works, right? So, yeah, that was a deliberate choice. And like you've probably done shorts where you like COVID era shorts.
Oh, I didn't. I don't think I did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think. Because I was working on a different project right before the lockdown, and then so the first year was finishing that and then starting this, and then I worked on a couple shows that might have had a mask or certainly mandates to do, but I don't know if they. That was the wild thing about watching everyone process that at the same time and make story choices. Like I remember, like SVU, they'd be like masked up on the street, and then they're like, well, you got to take Mariska's mask off, you know, like when she's talking inside of a building. Like that makes sense. We all buy it.
Yeah.
It was on that. Well, we're deep into bro code.
Yeah.
And of course, I was supposed to get your life stories first.
Oh, shoot.
We'll get there.
We messed up.
So, do you want to keep going with bro code, or should we shift back to your entire life stories until you met in that building? Where by the way, where was the building?
Culver City or Palms,
Palms,
California.
If you're an LA person, you should know Palms.
Yeah,
it's like if Culver City had a hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was where the Trader Joe's is, but anyway.
yeah. Well, in a metro stop now.
In a metro stop, yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
But do you want to? Well, yeah. So let's. Who wants to go first and say how when you caught either the creative bug or the acting bug, or what happened in what order for you?
I've been going for a while, so
right.
why don't you?
Let's go to Patrick.
I think I was always interested in acting as a kid. I grew up outside of Chicago, and my dad worked for the newspapers and was friends with the movie critics. So it was kind of a hobby to read movie reviews and watch movies and argue with my dad's friend about, you know, what I liked versus what he thought was trash. And so saw Chicago theater growing up, and in middle school we did like one musical production a year in the spring. Committed to that, and then
What did you play?
we did my what was it? My senior. Oh God, my 8th grade year, we did a production of The Wiz, which maybe you can't tell, but I'm white.
The Wiz and the Burbs.
The Wiz, an all-white production of The Wiz. It might not have been all white, but it was it's a great joke in my head now. I played the Tin Man, so that was a big deal. And then in high school, I did sports until I didn't make, you know, the JV team or whatever. And then I was like, what's this production going on over here? And did a straight play and did all the plays senior year, and then ended up going to Loyola Chicago for a theater degree, and studied with the Steppenwolf Theater after college, and then came out to LA for to try my hand at movies and TV. And Chicago is such a great theater town; it was kind of hard to imagine leaving. So, but one of the Steppenwolf members, Fran Guinan, said, like, you can always come back to Chicago. The theater will always be here. And he had recently done that. He had moved back after probably a few decades in LA, and he's like, I did this one movie in the 80s, and I bought a house here in Chicago. You know, like I'm like, that's the dream. And I moved out. I haven't moved back, and then cut to 15 years later, maybe 12 years later, met Sean in our apartment building, hanging out, and then we, you know, ran in similar circles and similar experiences in LA, just on the hustle. So that's how I got there. Yeah,
I always think, and I know this is a really not impressive insight, but starting in somewhere like Chicago always sounds ideal to me. Like compared to like starting in LA, like the theater scene in Chicago is such a better community.
Yeah.
And people aren't there doing it just because they want to be famous. Like you're not,
yeah.
People don't have these myths, right? Whereas I've met too many actors in LA over the last 30, 40 years who I'm like, oh, do you ever do plays? They're like, no, I'm not interested in plays and stuff like that. And it's it just seems so much healthier to cut your teeth in a place like Chicago and then come here when you're ready.
Yeah, you learn a work ethic for sure, and I still I get pangs of envy for my friends that are still there, just because there is an aspect that's totally different from LA in that you can, I guess, like doing a short film, which is a passion project, you could put up a play and not have it be an enormous expense. And people will come to see it and support the arts in Chicago. You could get written up, in the Reader or whatever. And at the time that I was there, or just sort of graduating into the Chicago theater scene, there was not a lot of TV and film. So it was like, if you got an agent, right? What I did briefly, it was like, you have an audition for this commercial or this print ad, and then you have an audition for like the Madison Rep. And so, you're going to have to take a gig like in Wisconsin for 2 weeks and figure out how to have a day job and stuff. And so people they really work for it, And when I moved out to LA, like a year into living here, I got a call from a theater that I loved in Chicago. And they're like, hey, we want you to audition for this production. And I was like, cool. Like, and they're like, yeah, it's $50 is all you. And I was like, oh, yeah, because I have to pay for rent here in Los Angeles. And like, that sucks. I can't come and audition. But, it's just a totally different lifestyle. But people learn to work really hard. And you definitely, admire all the different types of hustle that there are.
And you learn the importance of community and supporting each other too, right? Like a lot of people here, I feel sometimes get a little too island solo-y in a way. And
sure.
Now, Jeff, I need to know what you can do for me and how you can help me
with
my career.
Oh, no, well, should we joke? Oh, this is a podcast and no one can see us, but can we joke about the talking to you and then looking up past you to make sure no one important has walked into the room while you've been speaking?
Yes.
Like, people make fun of that. By the way, as a third generation Angelino, I'll just say those are the people who move here most of the time.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Like the us natives, we're kind of normal, I think.
I think so. Yeah. I like meeting people who are from LA because it's like, okay, cool. You saw all the insanity happening like to your home, like around you, and you got to see the aliens invade and just you've dealt with it,
For sure. But so you came out here and you mentioned 15 years before you met Sean?
Yeah, roughly 10 or 15,
10
somewhere
to 15.
in there.
So a good while of just hitting the pavement and
just auditioning. I did plays out here when I first moved out because that made sense to me, and I see why people don't. So it's not, you don't have the community, and it's very hard to get audience out and to convince people to make the drive across town for a Thursday night show.
Breaks my heart, by the way. It breaks my. I actually have a rule that when someone invites me to a show, like, I really try to go because it's worth it. And live theater is actually beautiful. Even a bad play is good, because there's human beings in the room with you.
For sure. People are putting something out there, and because you're living on an island most of the time, you don't see that. And I think that's where that cynicism comes from in LA, because we're always kind of like,
and the immediacy of it.
Yeah, but I did a little theater. I did Second City, and so I got into. I ironically didn't do any of that in Chicago, and then made my Chicago people out here had already had their Second City bona fide, so they were like, "You should do the Second City out here," and had a great time there. And then every now and then get a TV gig or a commercial, something like that. So
excellent, and then. You guys met in the web series, and then you just were friends and neighbors, and then eventually the web series was the first collaboration? Or should we jump into Sean's past now? You want to go back to your childhood?
Oh, so when I was born, I was a baby. And my dad was older.
Was it raining?
I was born in the cultural hotbed of Whitensville, Massachusetts, where we didn't have much going on, and there's more cows than people. So growing up, I was always interested in acting and performing, entertaining, particularly.
I'm going to interrupt then. Birth order, siblings?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest.
Yeah.
And where do you think you mentioned acting really early?
Yeah.
Any clue where the inspiration came from?
You know, this will sound like a joke, but my great grandmother, her and her sister used to like act and play guitar and sing at a carnival and in like vaudeville. So there's some part of my family that is like theatrical, and they joke a lot, and like they're very loud and performative as people. They're also very arts focused, but kind of too poor to pursue it. Right. So like, and that's kind of how we grew up. And, you know, I definitely had a lot of interest in it. And like when there would be plays, even in like elementary school, I would be like on the outside looking in, being like, maybe I should do that. But I was like, had a lot of anxiety or self-conscious about it, and kind of never did anything about it. And then in high school played sports, and that was great. And then a little bit after high school, I played sports, and I ended up...
So no high school plays or anything?
No high school plays.
You kept, there was a yearning that you denied.
I completely ignored it. Yeah. And the funny thing is, and I'll get to it when I get to college, but like some part of me always wanted to pursue it, and it was finding ways out, whether it was getting in trouble at work or, you know, something where you're just being an idiot, or trying to, I was playing in bands, or like I got into bodybuilding for a while, and like that was, I understand that now, that was my creative outlet, right? And like that was kind of where everything was going, or like where I would channel any kind of emotion would be through movement in some kind. So before I went to college, though, was back up. So after high school, I was just like working. I got super fat, and I was obese, and my grandfather died. He was 63, and I was like, you know, not going to be me. So let me start getting my shit together. So I ended up going to school for kinesiology and biochemistry, and I got a double degree in that. And then I was doing master's work in energy metabolism and muscle biophysics. When my last semester of school, my personal training client was like, hey, you know, have you thought about acting? And I'm like, I have thought about acting. And, you know, like giving presentations at like conferences and stuff was way more fun than doing science. So I was like, you know, maybe I should think about this. And I needed to fill out to maintain my credits, I had to take a class anyway. So I was like, let me try it. And then it was like day one, they like throw us into like hardcore improv stuff. And I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. This is fun. You're right. And so that was kind of like the beginning of accepting of myself, right? And like all of the things that made me weird at every other aspect of my life were now like an asset and something that was useful. It was a tool, right? And not to mention that like theater people in general were just so welcoming of everybody. So as long as you were bringing yourself to the work, they were here for you, right? And like if you were trying to be fake or whatever, they would call you out on that. But so it was really a really great group, and this was at UMass Amherst, and their theater program there is excellent. And they've so what I ended up doing is I graduated, and I stayed a year, and the theater program let me audit like a bunch of classes and participate in plays that they put us. I auditioned for their like main stage plays and was able to get a few things. And
but you were actually working on a BS at first, a Bachelor of Science.
I have your Bachelor
of Science,
I have a double
and then
degree.
you were working on a Master's.
Yeah. I was doing Master's work, so I didn't. I mean,
I'm just trying to gather in my head the fact that like they're letting you audit classes and shit.
Yes. Yeah. So I came from.
You had a
impressive
degree.
So I came from a completely different background. Yeah. So like I came from like real hardcore science, and like I still have a deep appreciation for science and a love for the understanding of science and a lot of respect for what those people do. But ultimately, like academia and research was not for me. Right. Like it just didn't mesh well with my personality. Right. If I had to pipette one more fucking tray of vials, I would flip the desk over, you're doing like 200 of them for like a motility assay or something, and it drives you crazy. But when you're a creative person who has ADD, doing repetitive, redundant tasks can be really challenging, right? And like, it's just not what my brain or my personality was really like loved doing. I was good at it, so I was encouraged to do it, and that was largely what pushed me in that direction to begin with, was like some early success that was kind of driven by curiosity. But once I kind of got through the curiosity and had enough understanding where you get to like the real work of it, I was like, yeah, this is not fun. So like, and that's kind of what led me to trying other things, which brought me to theater. And I'm so grateful for that, because that was like just like a major light bulb moment where it's like, oh fuck, this is really what I should be doing. And this is like, oh, I gotta get on it. So, but anyways, yes. So they let me audit classes, and I did voice work and clown work and scene study stuff and script analysis, and did a few plays. And then after that, I did a regional Shakespeare production. And then I moved to New York City, with like the luckiest of all lucky options, because like the same personal training client that encouraged me to try theater, he and his husband had an apartment in New York, and they both worked and lived in Massachusetts, and they were like, we have an apartment in New York City. Why don't you go live there? And when we retire next year, you can fuck off and find someplace else to live. Right. So,
but they weren't using it till they retired.
They weren't using it. So
God,
they were
that's
like,
huge.
Yeah, it was incredible. And they, Paul Sharon and Miguel Romero, really, it was such an outstanding opportunity. And they would come into town, make dinner, take me to Broadway plays and musicals. And it was really such a wonderful experience while I was trying to like make a living and figure out how to pursue acting in some capacity, because I knew that's what I wanted to do. And then I eventually got into a drama school there, a conservatory called the Studio New York, and really wonderful teachers. And it was like a hardcore 60-hour-a-week conservatory where all you're doing is acting, and they torture you until you finally just let go, right? And learn how to just have fun with all of that discomfort. And it was again a really wonderful, super fortunate experience. And then just before I went to school, I met my partner, and she was not in entertainment, thankfully, and she still has a real job, which I love her for. Well, I love her anyways, but it's nice that she's like a real person. But she wanted to move to Los Angeles, and
really? She wanted to move.
She wanted to move. She had been in New York for 10 years, and like she had worked in finance, and just kind of had enough of New York, because it's a certain lifestyle, right? You're like carrying your shit everywhere. You're sweating a lot. There's people everywhere. And then you go back to like a shoebox apartment that's costing you,
it's either too damn cold or too damn hot.
Yeah, right. You get that one. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
I mean, it's great quality of life if you're a Jillionaire.
Yes. There's two
New
New
Yorks,
Yorks,
like a fun
right?
place to live if you're wealthy.
Yeah, exactly. There's New York, and then there's the one you can afford. So there's, it's, but I wanted to stay another year because I had just graduated school, and like I was starting to get to know some casting directors, and like I had a little bit of a network from doing plays there, and like I didn't want to give it up yet because we were like, oh, babe, I'm kind of like just getting started here, but she's like, no, I want to go to Los Angeles. And I'm like, all right, great. Los Angeles it is. Cause I wanted to do film and television anyways. And
it's not hard to convince an actor to move to LA.
Well, no, not at all. Exactly. So we moved out here in 2017, and then, I was doing everything possible to get on sets. Right. And like we moved, I moved without a job. So like I was trying to find work as a personal trainer to like kind of like make ends meet and meet people. That was fun for a while, and it worked, and I ended up at a great spot in Santa Monica that kind of allowed me to branch out, and I met a bunch of people there too that also brought opportunities, as things do here in Los Angeles. So like if you network and talk to people and see how you can help them, and things turn into something eventually. But so Jess and I moved. Jess is my girlfriend, so we moved to the building that Patrick was living in, and the property manager there is like a really wonderful person who's very community focused, and she was like, hey, why don't you guys come out to the veranda? We're having drinks with this other couple. I think you guys would like it. He's an actor. So, and that's how we initially met.
Yeah.
And then when 2020 happened, when the pandemic happened, initially there was we had that 2-week, lockdown. And I was like, cool, 2 weeks, probably not going to have this much free time again. Let me just make something. So then I wrote this 3-minute skit that was based in the world of Westworld. And the reason I did it was I was so disappointed with where the season 3 was going that because I was just such a fan of the show, and they had just made choices that were different than I would have. So I was like, all right, I need to do something with this. I think there's so much opportunity. It sparked my imagination, right? So I was like, I want to do something comedic in the world of Westworld. So I came up with, all right, so after the events at the park, the parent company is now selling hosts directly to consumers because they're trying to make ends meet. And then so this guy buys a version of himself to do all the boring shit in his life, and it doesn't know where the monotony ends. Right. So the episode that I wrote, the first thing in this 2-week down period was just him diagnosing his robot getting fired from his job. And then it's dude, what happened? And he's like, well, I was up all night banging your wife. And he's like, well, hold on, what the fuck? And so, and that's the joke of the scene, right? And it kind of goes from there. And so it was this one contained episode. It was never supposed to do anything else with it. And I was just like, cool, I got 2 weeks. I'm going to shoot this thing on my iPhone. I'm going to act both parts. This is great. I'll talk my girlfriend into being the 2 voiceover lines I need from the wife. And then and that's what I did. And then, taught myself how to color grade it, whatever. And the worst case scenario too, shooting for the phone, because it was all at night and just not what that equipment was good at. But anyways, so then lockdown kept getting continued, right? And it kept getting extended, and it kept getting extended. So then I was like, all right, well, why don't I just write 6 more episodes of this, or write 6 episodes total? So then I built this thing out, and then I was like, all right, and there's an actor in the building, so I can get someone else to work with me. So
were you friends at that point, or were just more you were acquaintances?
Acquaintances. We had met a couple times, and
but it wasn't you were hanging out all the time, and you found you had this really good chemistry that you might want to throw on screen. Because that's an assumption that should be ruled out, because that's how it went.
Well, I would say that when we hung out, we were fast friends, right? But it was not the opportunity to hang out was happening all the time. And I forget how we exchanged contact information, but it wasn't initially, and it was through this through our property manager, where I was just hey, are you guys? Text, well, so it wasn't even. It was just me
drinks text
right, are you guys, exactly. Katie and Patrick going up to the veranda anytime soon? Let me know. And that was hey man, I wrote this really stupid thing that I would love you to be part of if you're interested. And of course, when you ask people, you never know how they're going to take it, or if they're going to take it. So, I was building this all up, and then he's
that just shows you have a healthy lack of narcissism. Right? Because some people are everyone wants to be in what I wrote.
You know
what I mean?
It was a pretty easy job to say yes to. He's like, do you want to shoot this thing in our building?
It requires no money.
You have to walk down 2 flights of stairs.
Yeah. During lockdown, where you can't really do much anyway.
We'll be done in an hour.
Yeah, exactly. But I really appreciate, I'm trying to compliment the fact that you didn't say to yourself, he'd be dying to do this. So Patrick should pay me.
I certainly don't have that. Yeah. I think with everything I write, it's I find it good. I find it funny. And that's usually where it stops. Occasionally, things are worth other people seeing. But But I didn't have wasn't sure how he was as an actor, because us getting drinks in the veranda, not talking about entertainment or doing work is one thing. But then, we all meet people here in LA that are we'll only do shit. It's got to be, all of the paperwork has got to be in. You got to be paying my SAG health insurance, and that's totally fair, right? Like you're offered a lot of crap, so you just didn't know. I just didn't know where he was. If he was just like oh yeah, dude, like I think this is great, or if he probably would have let me down nice because he's such a nice guy. If it wasn't good and he didn't want to do it, but yeah. So like I had built this whole thing up and was trying to okay, I think we could. So, hey man, do you want to be in this thing?
It didn't come through a random Facebook message, so it seemed legit. So.
Yeah. Well, and of course,
and you read it, and enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, it was like
a
fun the scene for us. It was, I think I was the salesman essentially, basically selling like a knockoff version of, and then cut to it's him in the trunk. So it's just kind of like,
yeah.
And then I also got to. I was impressed to think just like Sean was just trying to make something and was willing to teach himself all of the things that go into it, where I think, rightfully so, a lot of people are like, well, we need this, we need someone who knows how to do this. And you have, little film projects get big very quickly. And, you'd see him and Jess shooting, and then I'd ask him how did it go or whatever, and then he would tell you about like the manual he read to try to figure out how to get this piece of equipment working. I was like, well, this guy is for selfish reasons alone is good to have around because he's gonna figure it out. And since then it's like I worked on a project and I was like, Sean, they needed a guy to come do sound. I was like, Sean can handle it. Like, let's, so a utility, anyone who has more than one skill to bring to the table is worth like keeping around,
Absolutely. I was actually going to say earlier that you both are coming across as fairly well-rounded humans, which isn't always the case.
Yeah.
But I think, some people with a laser focus on acting sometimes might be wonderful at it. But for the filmmaking thing, you've got to be a jack of all trades. You just do. If you're a creative person in this collaborative medium that requires so many hats to be worn by various,
and if you don't want to go insane, like if you because to be laser focused, great. I've been there. Like it's awesome. I'm doing a conservatory. You can only do that for so long, especially when the validation or the jobs are not coming through. So it's like you have to have a life and an interest in other things in order to enjoy yourself. Otherwise, it gets negative really fast. I think.
I also think that as you let go of that laser focus and you open your life up to other things, your work gets better too, right? Like
exactly.
I became a much better actor when I became more interested in living and less interested in acting, right? And I think that's something that we all go through at various points, right? Like you want it to happen, and there's so often in this town especially where you feel like if I just work a little bit harder, it'll break. It'll never break. So you have to get extremely lucky, and it's not necessarily about work ethic or talent. There is a luck component to success in this town that is often not spoken about, but it is a reality. So I guess the way that I've looked at it is I'm just going to try to make some of my own luck, right? And just stay, or at the very least stay busy and become a better performer, so that way when I do get an opportunity, I actually have the skill set necessary to sustain it, right? And it's not just like a flash in the pan where oh yeah, he booked a co-star or guest star on this whatever show and he's in 2 scenes and then never heard from again. It's like that happens. And I don't know, you just start, you want to work and you want to do stuff and want to make things, and you find people that want to do it too. And
obviously, you didn't say it, but doing the other things involved, whether it's writing or editing and this, that, then when you're acting again, right, you have a better perspective on it, and you have a bigger picture.
Fully. Yeah. And that was something that I always had in mind. And I think maybe is what helped me find the courage to try writing and to try shooting something and to try directing, was if I do these other parts, it'll make me a better actor because I'll then understand. Right. And when I'm on set, it is a lot easier then to be like, okay, so I can give the editor options either between takes or depending on what the scene is. If I throw an eye line, I can be the pivot person for them to edit between two different characters if they need to, a reaction shot or something. So you start thinking about, all right, what are the pieces that we need to tell the story? How can I offer as many of those pieces as possible in my performance? While being present with the character, right? So it's like, it's not like it's a manufactured but you just have a greater awareness. Or if you see the camera get bumped in the middle of your take, to hold it. And like, it just opens your perspective up a lot. And, it's been great. And I think it does make you a better performer to try these other things on, even if you hate them, right? It's like, it's good to have an understanding of like, all right, this is, edit something,
I mean, I know Bro Code wasn't a huge production but you were both producers on it, but even just putting on that producer's hat a couple times in your life. Yeah. You're not going to be I guess you could still be a prima donna, but you have to be a real asshole to be after knowing what a producer goes through and the millions of things, the millions of details that have to be right.
For sure. There's so many things that have to happen for the camera to roll on any given day, on any given shoot, right? It's like, it's a miracle that anything gets made. And it does drive you crazy then when there's like people that show up late or don't take it seriously or didn't read the script or
don't respect other people, right? Because if you don't respect actually oh my God, I'm so dated, but like, you used to have to load the film into a magazine, like in a bag. Like if you don't respect the second AD who's doing that job, if you treat that person badly, you haven't been around long enough to know that everybody's important.
Yeah.
And you can't do everyone's job as well as they do. And you got to have gratitude and collaborate.
Well, yeah, especially, I mean, it is a collaborative medium, right? I think that's one of the things that makes film so interesting. And I still do theater and I love theater. And theater is a collaborative medium in a different way. But film requires everybody to be so on top of their game because you have to come together collaboratively to be in service of the film, right? Of the story. And like, on a good set, I think everyone has this awareness and this sensation that like we're working on something bigger than ourselves together, right? And like it's a really intimate, fun, stressful in a good way experience where you're trying to like push this thing forward and get this thing done and you want to see it, and it's like everybody's movie at the end of it, right? And it's like film to me is the closest to like team sports without being a team sport, right? And it feels that way when it's going well.
I almost mentioned that you both mentioned sports in the past in this talk, and people who've played team sports often are like really better collaborators at film because you understand that it is a team.
There's a role.
You win
play.
As a team.
Yeah, yeah. You have to do your job. Isn't always scoring hitting the home run or scoring a touchdown or whatever. It's like sometimes your job is to set a pick in basketball or whatever.
You set the pick. You make the pass that leads to the pass. That's the assist. Right. Like you don't even show it. It's not hockey. You don't get the 2 assists, right? So, but yeah, exactly. Yeah, it shows. I think it shows.
I hope so.
All right. So you guys. I guess we already got up to Bro Code now.
Yeah. So
although the Westworld thing, how happy are you with it?
Honestly, if it's the thing I'm most proud of.
Oh, nice.
So far. Now, I really wish I had better gear to work with, especially for audio. The audio is pretty tough, but if you watch it on a phone, it's not bad. It kind of holds up. Yeah, right. So it's all right.
I wish I could make fun of that, but the truth is,
most people watch these on phones now.
There's a 16-year-old who under this roof right now who will sit on that couch in front of I think it's a 55-inch TV, and she'll watch Netflix on her damn phone.
Yeah. And honestly, I intended it to be watched on a phone. I shot it on the phone, and like that was always kind of what I kind of imagined the final viewing spot to be, where it's like, I think Quibi was popular at the time, but I didn't make it vertical. Yeah, right.
Right. So after that, you guys have a working relationship going.
So we had fun with that, so I was sidetracked, which often happens, but when I first approached him, and this is relevant to the maintaining a relationship, I was like, I'm going to do all of the things that I hate that people don't do to actors, right? It's like, here's the script up front. Here's the story. If you're interested of it, I'll make sure that you have your footage right away, right? And it was like, I was super motivated to edit that episode as fast as possible to be like, hey man, here's the episode. Here's your footage. Like, I hate when you like put in all of this work and effort and like they don't even, and like you're doing it for footage if you're not getting paid, and most of the time you're not, right? And they're like, they don't even, you just never hear from them again, right?
And they show you 2 pages,
yes,
max,
right? You get your scene or whatever, yeah. So I didn't want it to be like that at all. So I was like, hey, here's the episode, here's what I made, this is where I'm at so far, here's all the scripts of the series, like this is the scene that we're shooting, and I tried to make it as easy as possible, because that's like, there's nothing worse than when you're the actor and you feel like you're not being taken care of. So I really tried to make it a point that you'd feel like you're being taken care of. But yeah, so then we had a working relationship after that, and we stayed in touch, and we'd send each other like other things that we were writing or other shorts we were working on. We'd go back and forth, and then yeah, when Presley was like, hey man, let's shoot something, I was like, yeah, I know a guy, and he's down, and we have a script, and let's go. And so then, yeah, we started working it and workshopping it and rewriting and kind of getting it to a spot where we were happy with it. We ran out of time, really, is what happened. But we got it to a spot where we were happy with it and went to go shoot.
We ran out of time.
We had a shoot date like lining up, so we had a location. I was living in New Mexico at this point, so we had left.
Right, so it was like the cabin someone could loan you.
That's
or
right. Yeah,
it was.
Exactly. So like I had left LA for
so that actually created a
pandemic.
single weekend you had to shoot.
Yes. Yeah, exactly right. Yes.
So instead of like, oh, we'll do it when we're ready,
yes.
It was...
No, it's like, oh, we're doing it on September 28th or whenever we shot, so we're like, we're doing it. So like, and then cabin's paid for, and like, so that was kind of how that ended up working out. And each of us, like Patrick helped us get the location, did all the paperwork for that, and Ali helped us with all the crew stuff, and then I had I knew that I was going to be doing a lot with the media and all the other shit at the other side of it, so like we kind of just split tasks up and ironed it out and
divide and conquer.
Yeah, exactly. And then we did a rough plan of it, and then Ali did a great job of like working with us individually and collectively to kind of like figure out character stuff, make some choices, make some wardrobe choices for the color palette that he had in mind, and kind of helped identify the story that he wanted to tell within the script, right? Which was then fun because he'd be like, I think we should do this. And like he had worked on some really like strong comedy shows. So he'd be like, throw out something wild. And I'd be like, well, actually the intention of the whatever. And he'd be like, come on, dude, we're here to have fun. And he'd be like, yeah, you're right. But we had a lot of great conversations throughout the shoot too, where we'd be like, well, I was intending this. This doesn't mean it's right, but this is like what I had in mind, or what my headspace was when creating the situation. I think this is where the characters are. And then he would come up with like, hey, we can amplify that with this. And it's like, great, that's amazing. And he really did help us pull out like the best parts of that story. And even though he was dealing with camera stuff and yelling at our sound guy to move a light and whatever, like he would still give us like a great note or a great adjustment.
And shooting 2 cameras.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We had 2 cameras going, and for time, because we had, and then we knew that we would improv a little bit. So
yeah,
but yeah.
3 crew members, 2 cameras, and Ali would press record on one, run to the other.
Yeah, right.
We're waiting.
Right. And then we'd have slate each one, and yeah.
We were tired.
We were tired. Yeah,
shoot.
We were tired. Yeah, it was a long one. We were all doing a lot, like setting up the tent and whatever, which was like one of the scenes is setting up the tent incorrectly, but then like we had to do that as well, and get everything organized, and and then we had a couple insert shots that we shot after once we had like assembled the whole thing. So there's like a close up of the cooler that we shot, and then there were some things like once we had established the new editing language for it, we were like, hey, it'd be really funny if we saw like him in his car try to talk to the girl, or a couple of we had like riffed and came up with a few other like what is his internal state and how do we show that, and that was like, so I shot those in New Mexico at my house.
Just did some pickups.
Just did some pickups like on my phone, or I think I may have borrowed a camera from work for a few of the shots too, and like just put them together. And
I got a question that backs up a little bit, but I mean, I think one of the things I enjoy most about it is the buddy comedy aspect of. Yeah. I mean, the old jargon of like, there's the straight man and the funny man. Like, was that very much on the page?
Yeah.
Because you two nailed that. Like,
that's definitely on the page. Like, the one character is going through the breakup, so he is just a stick in the mud.
Yeah, he's dour. He's dour.
I think,
and you were like hilarious throughout because you're
and I'm just broing out,
jovial,
and really excited for this. And then some of it I think got improvised where you retorted back, or like and that brought that dynamic out of like he's not going to just eat shit the whole time either. Like, he's not going to let his friend push him around.
It tried to not play at one note, right? Where like you still have a personality when you're upset, so like you still find things funny. There are ways to break through that, right? So like we tried to bring that to it as well, even though he was down. Patrick was so funny too in some of those takes where it was really hard to not laugh. There's still some of those like outtakes that I think about every now and again. There was one like, so we have this like argument later on, and like I had turned to him and I had said something, and this like, oh yeah, that's what you think, and he's like, oh, are you fucking Jimmy Stewart now? Or it was like, and it was just so funny. But he was like so great at coming back hard in character and like right on story. And
that's the Second City training.
Yeah, it was so hard to not break in some of those.
Well, and that first day that we shot, even though we didn't use a lot, one of the things we shot was a really long phone call of me getting him off of his like me being outside saying, hey, I'm here, let's go, and him fighting, like resisting, and me talking up how great this camping trip is going to be. And that, I think we had a little bit written, but then it was like, let's improv for Sean's reactions and just to try things. And so we had done basically half a day where it was just me in character coming up, like being, how ridiculous can this guy be? Like, how misogynistic, how like, and some of the montage stuff that's in the film, what you don't see is just me trying to just break Sean the whole time, like telling stories about like Vegas and camping and hookers and like, whatever I could think of that would be ridiculous, because that just, and so the character got more and more ridiculous, and then when they trimmed away at it, you're like, that
it worked.
It's still there.
Well, and it was fun to push them, like, so structurally we wanted to start it as far away from the ending as possible, right? And the characters both kind of do a 180 where like at the very end of it, like Ben, Patrick's character, is in the position that Chris was at the start, and Chris is now on the other side, right? So like they have this transformation where they kind of foil each other throughout the whole movie, and there's one spot where they intersect at this like breakup that we had the first cut is the deepest, right? Like my buddy Adam and his wife Mel, they're wonderful composers, and they did all the music for the movie. They had this really like heart-wrenching, sad, and I just thought it was so funny to like lean into this like breakup scene for these guys, and like that was kind of like a big thrust of the story, right? Was like looking at broke culture and like dude culture and trying to make fun of it a little bit as insiders, right? So it's I think one of the things that has been funny is like how many guys have seen it and are like, dude, I've got a friend like that, or that happened to me once, or like it's like unbelievable, like so we were just trying to have fun with these circumstances,
I mean, the truth is, like, the shortcut of using that title
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was actually at a dinner, I don't know, a month or two ago.
Yeah.
And a friend, a new friend's partner, she like said something insulting about him. And then I said, oh, but you get this positive thing. And he just looks at me and he goes, Jeff knows bro code. You know what I mean? Like I just stood up for him to his lady. Like,
Yeah.
no,
he's a good guy.
Because a lot of guys might shit on the friend, right? Like
Right.
pile on. But
Yeah,
instead,
yeah.
like I backed him up a little. And
Yeah.
but I was like, and he threw out the term bro code right there. 'Cause
Yeah.
it is like it communicates immediately like what the film's going to be about.
It does, which I was worried about because it's like kind of on the nose, and I didn't want you to figure out what was happening like from the beginning. So we had tried to come up with other titles, but we were like, I don't know, just Bro Code is it.
We did. That's
Yeah.
right.
But just nothing was better than Bro Code. So it was like we stuck with that.
But oddly, it's a non.
Yeah.
This is
they break
this is,
the bro code. Yeah.
Well, but I'm about
Yeah.
to say like no. I was actually going to say it's a. I'm laughing at myself because it's a non-toxic masculinity film.
Yes.
Is what I was
Yes.
what I'm trying to get out of my mouth. It's
Like
not an easy thing to say.
war films.
Yes.
But it's not a film that celebrates the negativity of
Right.
being a
Right.
bro or a guy in our culture, a cisgendered male.
Sure.
It points out the foibles and the emotional, reality of it.
Yeah. And we had a lot of conversations.
Like your guys are sensitive.
yes.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean?
That was the funny.
Like
that was
both of them.
that was the
Yes.
most exciting part to shoot. Was like
Yeah.
3 a.m. in the woods and being like, all right, we got here because we kind of
Yeah.
did it in chronological order.
Ish,
Just
yeah.
the light, and it was like, oh now we have to like really be vulnerable here because we broke up.
Yeah, you're so hurt, and it's raw. It was funny. Mark, our sound guy, at one point, he's like, I don't know what to think about this movie. I really want to see it when it's done. He's like, there's some parts that are just so funny, but he's like, and then it's like really sad, And it was like, well, thank you, Mark. I hope that holds up in the edit, and I think it does in a way that you end up laughing at them and their fragility. But we were very conscious about trying to show two men trying to do their best, right? And like this circumstance was it was out of fear of having the hard conversation early, right? And it's like there's an old Russian saying that's like, easy choice, tough life, tough choice, easy life, right? And it's like, it's that. And it's like, so they chose the easy choices throughout this thing, and it led them to this moment that they now have to confront every choice they've made previously.
Yeah, for sure. For some reason, I just want to add that it's not purely masculine. I know women actually, the same code exists.
Totally.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, my first wife completely freaked out when some of our mutual friends, when we got divorced, and like a couple hit on me, and she's like, "What the fuck? She can't date. You can't date her.
Yeah.
You can't date someone I'm friends with." I'm like, I'm pretty sure I can do anything I want now.
Yeah,
you
right.
can't tell me what to do. But she was mad at the other woman.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, because
It's
she's like,
relationships.
it's the code. Like
It
you
is.
can't
Yeah.
date my ex.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the friendship, like because it was two friends, dealing with a breakup existentially, and then having their own breakup. It's like that is something that interestingly happens all the time. Where it's you could be friends, and then someone has a creative breakup in this town, and then you're like, oh God, like I got invited to this. I don't know what I'm. We've all been in these sticky situations where you're like, I think I should do this, but also like I don't know how they would feel, and we don't know how to talk about it. Depending on your relationship.
That's true. There's the professional ex.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is wild. Yeah. Yeah. It's all tricky. The whole ex thing.
It is. Well, that's why we wanted to end with them in the car together too. So we were like, let's find a way to get them together after this argument. And
Well, I have no doubt that their friendship survives. But
yeah. Well, we kind of ended up leading it in that direction, and we tried to let it be open-ended. But again, when you start making choices and tightening stuff, the story tells you what it is, right? And at the end, it does seem like they'll figure it out, right? Like they'll get over it. Is my feeling. Was that yours too?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely like the way that the text comes through finally, which I don't think we originally
did not. We found that in the edit.
Found that in the edit. So we sort of filmed this ambiguous ending, like this, hey, I know we're not getting back together, man, but like, let me give you a lift ending. And then a few months later, you guys hit me up and you're like, we need you to do an ADR thing because we're going to have a text come through that then I get dumped. And so you're like, oh, they're going to go straight to the strip club later.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I got excited by that. Like,
actually,
Indiana.
Your bond just times 10.
Right.
Yeah, you now have a mutual enemy.
That's true. Had you married that person, then he can never talk to you again.
No, right.
But now that you've both, now you actually share the greatest thing men can share or people can share.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's funny.
Yeah. I was tickled by the idea that the whole movie then is for nothing, right? Like if he had just waited, he was going to get dumped anyways, and he never would have had to say anything.
Oh man, now I'm thinking like, what's the timestamp on that text? Did it arrive the minute they got out? They lost reception 2 days ago.
Maybe, yeah.
True, they didn't know the whole time.
Yeah, for sure.
He could have kept his mouth shut if he just had reception.
Yeah, right. But that was part of like what played into our mind with it when we were like, that's funny, and it kind of has that like. It's one of the things I love about Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? Is it's like the Nazis open the chest and I'll get killed, right? Like, so the whole movie is kind of not for anything. So that's like I love that plot feature exists. So it was like kind of
the
fun.
arc ends up in some crazy ass warehouse.
Right.
Never to be
seen, right? And so that was like if Indiana Jones never did that, it was going to end up that way anyways, right? Which is like the part that we tried to channel.
The Nazis did lose, huh?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I think I saw. I remember I saw a movie or something.
Yeah. It's funny how that happens.
Good triumphs, maybe?
Hopefully.
I don't know.
Tune in November. Yeah.
But anyhow, jokes aside, and then you finish it up, and did you hold on to it till the world went back to normal to hit the festival circuit? Or was your edit so long that...
Well, so the edit was a while. I was working on it, and Ali keeps very busy. So he was lucky. He's been lucky enough to like work regularly as a DP and camera stuff and directing, and so he would he'd be like on a travel shoot or something, and I'd send him a cut, and then he would take a week or two and get it back to me, and then he'd have notes. And then we'd get on a call and talk about it. And then I would take like a month to digest it, to be like, okay, I think this is how I can do it, and like approach it differently. Because it's like, it's tough when you
wrote it.
Well, I wrote it and I acted in it, and I was very aware that I acted in it. So I was like super conscious about not being favorable to myself. And that was like one of the things that Ali said. He's like, dude, this is your story. Like, you have to just like lean into your character. And I'm like, but Patrick has the best reaction.
Yeah, and you were aware, like, I got to show this to Patrick. I mean,
well, if I could make the movie
and
with
he's
just
all
Patrick,
the humor.
No, he's hilarious.
He gave. I got a lot of like layups in that I think.
But it was so I was very conscious about trying to not have any, trying to be aware of what biases might be there, and try to like to work independently about it, but it was tough with like doing things by yourself. Just takes longer. You can get to the same endpoint, right? But it does take you to get to a spot where you think it's finished, to walk away and to come back to it. And
so you weren't like sharing cuts with Patrick and stuff?
He saw some too.
He saw some of the longer, cuts.
We would kind of, you'd see like every other cut pretty much.
Yeah, you guys did like probably halfway through the process or 3/4 of the way through the process, we did kind of like a cast and crew Zoom screening, and then gave notes and digested it, notes. Yeah, so they reached out for notes and stuff.
And you made your list of demands.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like the cool thing about, from my point of view, of seeing it go from page to the scramble of filming and production, and then seeing the edit was just all of the ideas from the edit were brand new, versus all the bits and the things I thought we shot had been in my head for a long time. And so then I think, get bored with them, or you start to doubt, was that the right way to go? Like, we didn't do it this way. So then when they brought in all this energy with the new ideas in the edit, you're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. And you forget about all the things you had been worried about, not, because every scene in that, we probably only did 2 or 3 takes. So everything moved so fast.
Yeah, moved very fast.
And even though, so it really was in a lot of ways improv, because even the energy of improv of just like, nope, we're going, like, we gotta make this work. And you don't have time to second guess or be like, oh, I didn't like that. You can't bail out. You gotta we got to keep going. So, so it was just like a pleasant surprise. But when the new stuff came in, you're like, oh, the music's really giving me that vibe. And yeah, I think we were concerned in the longer version with how much of an asshole I was by the time the confession rolled around, even though I think you could justify it, but like, it's not justified in the dialogue between them, because the confession leads to the fight. And then like, the fighting element that we did kind of was an improv a little bit, like, some of it was written, and then we found this idea of like the hot dog being near the beer bottle, and like,
like that was something that as soon as
I almost brought up the hot dog like 10 minutes ago. I find that hot dog so fucking funny.
It was hilarious. We were like, again, we were very intentional with it, and we were like, all right, this is the one ask we're making of the audience, is to believe that I would throw a fucking hot dog in this moment. So like, that's, so like,
we
he
really
just
wanted to earn it.
Yeah. So it's just like, they get to this point and it's like the most tense thing possible. And he's like, they're standing and he's like, fuck you, you're an asshole. And he starts digging through the thing, and he's like, and he throws a fucking hot dog at him. And like, and that's what triggers this like whole fight. And then, as soon as we came up with that, and then while we were like setting up for this like hot dog throwing contest, you came up with the like, well, what if I feed him a hot dog on the ground? And we're like, that's fucking brilliant. Let's do it. So then like, so then I had the idea of like, all right, so let's put a beer bottle down, and like you reach out. So we're going to think you're going for the beer bottle, but then you grab the fucking dirty hot dog. And like, so that's how we got there for that. And it was just like, it's like the lamest fight ever. With these two dudes just like rolling around in the woods, and it ends with a wiener in the mouth.
I think that idea is in part inspired by a film from 2013 called Out of the Furnace. Did you ever see this?
Yeah.
It was
the
Christian Bale movie. It's very dark, like opioid meets like underground fighting movie. But Woody Harrelson, my buddy, a bro of mine, when that film came out, I think we saw it, and we would leave messages, because Woody Harrelson has this line early in the movie where he's like, eat the fucking hot dog. So that in the middle of the night when we're shooting, I'm like, oh God, he's got to eat the fucking hot dog.
It was so funny too. It was like, so funny. It was a fun shoot. Even with 5 of us moving at breakneck speed, it was a good time.
For sure. I mean, that's one of the reasons you do it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's fun.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to, it's the other thing about it that I think set us up for success in that way was we wanted to have fun. We hadn't convinced ourselves that this is going to be, our calling card to Hollywood by any means. No. It was like, hey, can we do this? Let's see if we can get this done. And I think then you're focused on the process, and you're as opposed to focus on the outcome or the way you think something should be. And it's like, best idea wins. Like, how do we're going with this. How do I make that work? No time to think about it. Like, just go.
Yeah. How do I bring the best version of this idea to life? Or is there an option to one up it or something? I don't know. It was like, it is a big yes and activity, right? Where it's like, all right, we're moving in this direction. What else can I bring to it? What else how far can we push it? And then inevitably in any good production, you step over the line and you're like, hold on, that's too far, but that's hilarious. Let's reel it in. So we did a lot of that. And then it was like really fun to screen it with, we screened it a bunch, or I should say I screened it a bunch, just like through the editing process to fine tune the comedy of it and fine tune the pacing and make sure that all of the information was being received. But it was interesting that, like, if you watch it twice, it actually makes a lot more sense the second time, because the text message that he sends at the beginning gives it away the ending, but you don't notice that unless you watch it twice, because it's like he's like, "Dear Alice," and then my character, right before they have this argument, is like, "Alice, where are you?" You're like, and that's so the audience,
right?
If you understand what's going on with the text message, or if you again watched it twice, so you would know what you're looking for. It's like, just before the character does, like, what's happening and where it's going. But that was a detail that has still been missed by, I think, a lot of people that have seen it. They're just like, "Oh yeah, it was fun," and it's like, no, but the text message is like loading the gun that gets shot, and like,
yeah.
Anyways.
Sometimes that stuff you got to be in the theater too, right? Because it's easier to read.
Yes,
and people pay more attention.
Well, we did it as voiceover. So we didn't want to. Like, we played around with everything. Like, we didn't want to do the text bubbles that everybody's doing. So we were like, do we do this as like a slow scroll, kind of as a joke, as he's typing? Or do we, we were playing around with a way that would make it accessible and easy for everybody. And then we were like, let's just have him voice over and read it. And actually, that may have been another thing we ADR'd. I don't remember if we did it on the day or not.
Oh, I don't remember. Yeah.
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 All right, so you, once you're happy with it, you hit the festival circuit?
Yes. Yeah. So we had a very long edit, and then we got together, and Lee and I were like, I think I've got like $500 that I can put into festivals, and so we had
the pain of
Yeah. So we were fairly selective, and we only wanted to apply to things that we knew we'd be able to go to in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So we only applied to maybe I don't know, 7 to 10 festivals. It was pretty selective, and just like local things that seemed like they had a good vibe, that were really well reviewed, which you guys were. And if you're listening to this, you're probably interested. It's a great fucking festival, please go. Yeah.
The experience, 'cause sometimes I'd done a few other short films that were comedies, and they don't always play well at the festivals. I think because people, one, make a lot of dramas, or like different riffs on different genres, and so, depending on how the programmers put it together, I feel like sometimes the audience is not like the table hasn't been set for the audience to receive a comedy in the order of the block.
Hugely, especially, I think. Well, a lot of festivals do big blocks. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like we do 3 to 4 film blocks at most. But if there's an 8 and 9 film block over 90 minutes.
It's hard.
And it's multiple genres. Like how does, the audience needs to know they have permission to laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the lack of energy in a theater, especially if it's like the 7th out of 9, like everyone's kind of wondering when they get to leave.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, how many films are left?
It's just like you're saying, it's a fish. It's especially hard for comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can tell which festivals have an audience that is passionate to be there too, and wants to, sort of play their part in the experience, which is, I'm there to laugh or to pay attention and to be interested in what's on screen. And it's not just like the 5 friends of each filmmaker there. So it was a good experience, even being so selective, because all of like the screenings we went to, people were like, the jokes hit, and it was just like, oh great, that's awesome. Like people liked, even like a little tiny thing that we thought was hilarious. It was like, oh, it translated. That's exciting. You know,
that one other weirdo in the audience. Yeah.
Did you have that experience where you heard like someone laughed at a moment that didn't always get it? And you're like, finally, we got that laugh.
Yeah. For me, and maybe you probably have different ones, but for me, there's a moment in the end where I snuck a joke into like the very dramatic part where he's just like, great job, great car, hair to match. And it's like, it's such a fucking stupid like joke in the middle of a dramatic moment that just almost no one gets the absurdity of it. But occasionally you have another weirdo that'll be like, ha, that's funny that you'd care about that, So it's like, that's like what he's looking up to. That's so stupid.
I'm going to confess something, which is there have been moments at Film Invasion LA or Sherman Oaks Film Festival where if the audience isn't cluing into a comedy, I laugh a little harder.
Yeah. I do that too. I'm that audience guy.
To make sure people know, like, no, that was funny.
Yeah.
Like, stop taking it seriously.
Yeah, you have to. Everyone has like some audiences need permission or something.
Yeah.
They need permission, and it's the laughter elsewhere that then loosens them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially it's something edgy.
Yeah.
Right.
You just have to give people just need to know it's okay.
Yeah.
They get a little too uptight. So if there's some loud motherfucker in the third row, then then everyone can jump in.
For sure.
Totally.
Yeah. So you were selective. That's cool.
Yeah.
And you had a good run. As far as I could tell.
I mean, considering I wish we had more money to send it more places and also more money to travel to other things because I think of like the 10, we got into 3 or 4 and, we were very grateful for that. And, but so much of it is a crapshoot of what's going on. You have no control over any of it. It's similar to getting cast in a movie, right? Where it's like you're sending it out and you're hoping it makes sense in whatever is emerging among the submissions that year. And
but it's $20 to $50 a pop.
Yes,
so
it adds up really quick. Yeah,
imagine if you had to pay $50 per audition,
right?
Yeah, it is. I have a lot of empathy for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and especially considering now, I think we talk about this a lot. Just what it seems like. It seems like a lot of shorts kind of need a budget of around $20,000 to $30,000 to properly pay everybody, which is great and wonderful. And I think in that budget they built in hopefully that money for the festivals, circuits, and stuff like that. But I'm proud of us for just being like,
just doing it.
It's gonna cost like this little eensy bit of money, and we're gonna go for it, and then we're gonna find a home for it. You know, which, it's like you get into a festival that's great, and then you get to attend, and then if you go to Sherman Oaks or Film Invasion, it's like then you get invited to these mixers and stuff, and you get to meet other people who are making things, and that's where the payoff is.
Yeah, that's what's important.
Yeah, the community.
Yeah,
for sure.
And other people who understand what it means that.
Yeah.
That you threw yourself into this.
Right. Into an idea.
And you just followed through, even though you ended up like, okay, fine, we'll throw in $500 each for the festival run. Like, I get it. Like, I know someone who made a feature for $6,000 and then spent another $6,000 on the festival run.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Including one cheesy ass festival here in LA that charged them extra to make a DCP that they already had, like stuff like that.
Like there's a lot of hidden costs. Yeah,
there's all these things that happen that you don't, that are hard to predict. But yeah, it's crazy to think that just getting it in front of audiences, it's going to be tough.
It's super hard, and then even if you get into festivals and it reaches the end of its festival run, it's like then what do you do with your short? Right? Like there's very limited options to get it out in front of audiences and for it to be seen. And it's like, you can put it on Vimeo or YouTube, but like you're going to get 8 views unless you have a built-in audience.
You are preaching to the choir now. You want to just keep going and we'll talk about it. No, because it was this podcast that I learned that everyone who makes shorts faces that life.
Yeah.
That future for their work. Everyone who made a feature was generally getting onto streaming at some level or another.
Kind, yeah.
Even if it was Amazon Prime Direct.
Right.
They could get it up there.
Right.
And then people
can
might find it.
They do find it.
Hundreds of millions of people on that damn...
Yeah.
I shouldn't say damn, on that lovely service. But that sends people into orbit as well as shows us content. But
Right.
yeah. And yeah, so that's why Discover Indie Film, the podcast, led to the TV series, just because I was like, there's got to be a way to get all these shorts together. And
Right.
Bro Code will be part of it.
Yes, it will.
That's exciting.
Yes, it is.
Which is cool.
It is.
And it's been... I'll tell you after we're done
yeah,
recording.
yeah,
but
yeah.
I've had my own trek with Amazon.
Yeah, for sure.
They were mean to me when they whatever. So, me personally, but and then just because I just fall in love with all these films,
Right,
and I see the quality of them, and I also see audience reactions to them.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times like a parent of an actor or director comes up to me afterwards and says, "I loved all the films I saw today. I didn't even know people made short films."
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And it turned out they loved them all, and they even like look me in the eye and they go, "I'd rather watch a bunch of shorts than sit through some Hollywood movie that might suck." Right? Like that's the exact math we're all talking about.
I'm surprised that there isn't more opportunities for shorts on streaming platforms, like for them to be found, because like, you know, to this person's sentiment, it does feel like Hollywood movies are getting like bigger and more bloated, and like there are more interesting stories being told either in short form or in indie film, right? Things that don't that have a little more permission because they're made for less money and they're made as personal project, you know, like passion projects.
As a passion project,
yeah. And like this isn't a knock on Hollywood at all, because I'm available for employment if anyone is looking or concerned. But it's not a knock on Hollywood. I understand what's happening there, where it's like, because this DVD model has gone away, right? Like movies have had to get so expensive and had to become such marketing machines to put butts in seats to make that money back, that like $30 to $50 million adult drama that we all grew up loving is gone, right? And like it's much harder to get those now, and you only get a couple a year that end up on Netflix or Amazon, right? And it's just the streamers that are kind of doing it because they're doing it just to give people an opportunity, like because they see the value in having a bunch of subscribers, right? Which is how the model has changed, and these companies are not they're not making money on movies, right? Like that is a sunk cost for them. They make money hosting this podcast on their web server, right? So they don't care about sinking the money that they don't have to make that money back, right? And that's the reality that we're looking at now. And you have traditional studios that don't have the financing opportunities to make that money back. So you get superhero movies and long sequels,
but they're scared. They're scared. And it's a confusing time.
Yeah.
And the star system kind of died. Like, like, you know, A-list actor doesn't guarantee an opening weekend at all anymore.
No, it doesn't.
20 years ago, it was guaranteed.
Yes.
They just knew if we put X performer in X genre, we'll make X the first weekend.
That's right.
And, you know, even the great Tom Cruise can have a bomb now.
I know. Well, it came out on a tough weekend. You know, I mean, I went to go see both of his movies last year, but it's but I think his Mission Impossible came out on a tough weekend, I think, and it was like you have little control over it. They have little control over that.
But really, everyone had waited 40 years for Top Gun, and
it was also
they didn't need the seventh one.
Yeah, no. I mean, they were both great movies, but the Top Gun was exceptional. It was like it delivered such a wonderful package at that time, right? It was like just the right amount of nostalgia, just the right amount of like innovation, and it was still a good story. It was funny. They're kind of like checked a lot of boxes for people, I think, and it was like the first big movie that drew people back coming out of the pandemic.
But well, I didn't see it because because I'm an asshole. No, I mean, I tell everybody. I've said it too many times, but they didn't need me to go. They
Right.
did fine without me. Sure. I'm fine without them.
Sure.
I'm not pretending that I'm causing any harm to anybody by saying I'm not going to go see it. But I saw the first one at a drive-in in when it came out. So
Right.
I don't know, and I'm kind of anti-nostalgia for the '80s, just because I am a kid of the '80s.
Sure.
And trust me, it wasn't that good.
Right.
I get it.
Right. Yeah. No.
If you were
Understood.
there, there, whatever. But yeah, it is even the success of Top Gun. They're like, oh, movies are back. No, just that one.
That one.
Right.
Well, and the same thing happened with the Barbenheimer.
Yeah,
right?
Barbenheimer
It was like
felt people are coming back.
Yeah,
No, but then
just for that.
a couple weeks later,
Yeah.
all the seats are empty again.
right. Yeah.
It didn't mean that the French Dispatch would be huge.
No, and this goes
Even if
into
it deserved it.
It
Yeah.
did. Yeah, it was good. And I think that it kind of also looks at another issue with the distribution model at the moment, where Disney owns 60% of screens on any one of their any given weekend, right? It's there's so little room for other things that aren't these massive tentpole movies, and they run for 8 weeks on,
And they're often
60%.
kind of soulless and made by committee, so
They
that's a
are.
little tough.
And, there are some really good ones too, to give them some credit. But
No, I mean,
it's
I always had. So in the '80s,
Yeah.
I loved Robert Zemeckis because he could step into the studio system and then still make something really original.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, sure.
Right.
And clearly Nolan can walk in and he can be like, I'm going to make a historical drama, but you're going to give me the money to make it, and it's going to be amazing, and it is.
Right.
He does something different with it.
Yeah.
And Barbie was unique as hell and
Greta
original.
Gerwig's amazing, so she's incredible.
Yeah, good. So there are people who can make something special, but a lot of the stuff isn't.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're asking me to do what?
Yeah, right. Or a lot of it is very
Liam Neeson's daughter's been kidnapped again?
Yeah, right.
Or someone else is
Yeah.
doing their version of
That's right.
of him?
Yeah. And that's something that's always been done if you look back through time and in the history of cinema, which is also very short, right? It's just over 100 years old. It's still a relatively new art form. Maybe we kind of have the language now. We'll see how we continue to innovate, right? But we kind of know what the camera does and how it tells stories and how the audience.
We have all that, but we've done this crazy thing where now everyone's willing to watch an 8-hour movie if you give them 8 1-hour episodes in one day.
For sure.
But give me 1 2-hour movie, and I'm like, I don't have time.
I still haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon because it's 4.5 hours, and I just wish it was a miniseries.
If it were a couple episodes, you might have jumped into it.
All over it, but it's so daunting, especially without an intermission, because Spartacus was on the Turner Classic Movies the other day, and there's an intermission in the middle of this 4-hour movie, as there should
bring back
be.
the intermission,
right? Bring back, if it's going to be long, which I'm all for a long movie.
Would be a fun idea to bring back.
Tarantino did it with
Sell the
Hateful
popcorn.
Eight. Yeah,
Sell it. Wait, what did he do with?
Hateful Eight. He did a.
There was intermission.
There's an intermission.
I forgot
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
I was just
Also
defending
in the
that
Grindhouse,
movie.
right?
Grindhouse.
Yeah.
That's right. There was too, but it's that was. I don't know. I think if you're telling a story that's going to be 4 hours, maybe give us a chance to pee in the middle.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Or get more food.
And get more food, yeah.
I mean, those M&Ms don't last all movie.
They do not.
No.
Especially if you're next to a teenager.
Especially the 30 minutes of commercials and previews.
Oh,
before
yeah,
the
right.
movie.
God.
Come on now.
And the size of that Coke. But yeah,
Yes.
no. It's,
Yeah.
And the other, well, we could talk about Hollywood's problems. But the
Yes.
other problem is the TVs are so good at home
Yeah.
Yeah.
that you... Look, I get really mad when I pay $20 a ticket to take the kid to a movie.
Right.
And then the quality of the image isn't as good as at home.
I know.
Right.
Because they don't bother maintaining their projectors.
Right.
And it's
Or
an
the
older
screen
projector.
surface. Yeah.
And it's dim and the blacks are grays. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, God, I got to watch this movie again just to see it look good.
Right.
I actually, Nope. I love Nope.
Oh.
But I took the kid to see Nope because I make her watch everything Jordan Peele does.
Yeah.
And when we went to see Nope at the Regal in Sherman Oaks,
Yeah.
it looked terrible. And
You knew it wasn't.
I knew it didn't look bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's tough.
It's a weird time.
It is a weird time.
But the indies can save us because
Yes.
there's so many great ideas and talented people.
There are, and I think, again, looking back at the history of cinema, you see like all of these moments where there is like things get stale and it breaks out into this like wonderful creative indie thing until the next thing starts and takes hold, right? And then you got a million zombie movies, right? And then and then it died, and we got another breakout thing. So like it is cyclical, where you kind of hit a plateau on a certain thing, the business changes, creativity will ultimately bring us back to the theater. I don't think the theater is going to go away, but it is competing with home distribution now, for better or for worse. I've seen a lot of great movies at home, so it's a way to get to an audience. Not everyone can get out to the theater, and I don't think we should. You can't. It's not accessible to everybody, right? Either financially or by location, right? So there's all kinds of reasons that people can only watch movies at home. But how do we make the business model sustainable so that way you can actually think about maybe eventually buying a house with your art someday, right? Because it's getting harder and harder to believe that is a reality, which is a little depressing when you think about it. And it feels like at any given point in time, there's 20 actors working, and the rest of us are okay, give us a chance,
No,
man.
and it's a concern.
Yeah.
It's a concern because there's value to storytelling. I'm of the belief that we evolved with storytelling and sitting around the campfire and sharing our days and our beliefs, and it's intrinsic to being human. Is storytelling.
Yeah, we're wired for it, right? The way we think, relate to anything, convey anything. Our whole day is stories, whether it's gossip or work or whatever. That's just how we structure thought. That's how our brains function. So it's it is integral to us, I think.
Yeah, we need it, and cinema kind of took over. People used to talk about writing the great American novel.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Then they started talking about writing the great American screenplay.
Yeah.
And now I guess they want the great American streaming series. I don't know what people are. I don't know what the passion is right now.
Limited
The
series.
TikTok, Great American TikTok.
Oh,
Yes.
fuck, you're right.
The Great American YouTube.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
it's going viral as the
Yeah.
viral video. Oh, that hurts.
Yeah.
And everything's happening so much faster, and then therefore
Yeah.
there's a new thing replacing it before you know it. Versus the movies, The Graduate or Jaws being in theaters for a whole year and people still seeing it. You're just now we pull it, put it on VOD, hope that builds up demand, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, and it is. There's something. All right, we should wrap this up
Yes,
because
right.
But
We'll go forever,
but the problem is this interests all three of us.
Yes. Yes.
But the experience of looking through a video store.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm old enough to look at the spines
same.
of the VHS
Yep.
instead of DVD, but that experience was such a better way of discovery than moving around on a streaming
tiles,
service on your
right.
TV. For some reason, I can't find what I want in the new world.
Yeah.
Whereas I could always leave with 3 VHS tapes
Yeah.
and have a great weekend with them.
Yeah.
Right. Well, not to mention you'd be looking, right? And then inevitably some other nerd would come up and be like, oh, yeah, have you seen whatever? This is great. And then you start, it's again, community, right? We are also,
Yeah, but the user interface of whatever streaming service you're on, it's not this. The photo they choose to put up there is not the same as the front cover.
No.
The 3 photos on
they
the back.
they show you what they think you're most likely to click on.
The bolded names are from the
Yeah.
people who brought you this, and then I gotta press the down button, enter to read the rest of the synopsis.
Yeah, that
and
drives
then
me
I'm
crazy
not really
too.
sure.
And then the autoplay when you're
And there's
trying to
just
read.
too much, right? There's too much. You're like, well, maybe not this. I'll keep moving.
Yeah.
Whereas, and the other thing that always I bemoan is that sometimes in that video store, you'd be like, I'll watch this again. I never do. It's rare to do a repeat watch of a film.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, my wife and I will just say, let's just watch Key and Peele again. We'll binge a TV series again.
Sure.
But I haven't watched Oppenheimer or Barbie or any of the things that I enjoyed in the last couple of years. I never do a repeat viewing, and you really, like you said about Bro Code, better the second time.
Yeah,
almost every film at every festival that I'm involved in, I see the films 2 to 3 times.
Right,
and that's honestly like one of the joys of my life is seeing it. Like generally, it's if I love it when I screen it in that room, then I show it to my wife, and that's the second time. And then I see it on a 65-foot screen in a state-of-the-art theater for the third, and I'm like, I really get to know them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I don't get to do that with the big films. Actually, I haven't gotten to rewatch Nope yet.
Right.
I got to. Because I sure as heck loved the other films of his more the second time.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, there's been very few films that I think I've revisited in the last few years, probably for the same reason. That and
because you have 100,000 choices.
You do have 100,000 choices, and like I came to this, I think, a little later than a lot of others, so I feel like I got to go back and watch other older things, and I really enjoy some older stuff, and trying to, I don't know, figure out what is. I don't know. There's just so much, like you're saying, and like so. Unless something really captures you, or you're revisiting it for research, there's not like there's just too much other shit, right? And I feel like things don't, and maybe this is just getting older too, but like things don't grab you necessarily in the same way as like they used to. It feels like when you'd see a couple movies a week versus like. You know, we watch hours all the time now because it's just available, you know?
Yeah.
For sure. Well, hey, I was about to bring up kids and other things that distract us from, multiple viewing. Because maybe the reason I watch movies over and over again when I was young is because I was young.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
unfortunately, that might be part of it.
Yeah,
that might be part of it.
Could be.
When you're in a 2-bedroom apartment with four guys.
Yes.
Yeah, you need the escape. Yeah.
You're like, what are we watching tonight? Whereas,
Yeah.
Well, but do you want, I didn't warn you, but I always, towards the end, I ask if you want to name like social media or websites that people should check out. And I try to type it as you say it so that that nice young man who's Calvin. Hey, Calvin can put it in the show notes.
Yeah. I'm on Instagram at _Sean Dube. It's SEANDUBE.
Yeah. Well, that I have, I think.
Okay. Yeah. You do. You definitely do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm at Patty Quinlan, PADDYQUINLAN on Gmail. On Instagram.
Yeah. On Instagram.
Excellent. I know.
I'm like, what? I'm used to finishing my last name and going into a
that probably also helps to define our ages, that it's about Instagram instead of
I've
the
given
dreaded
up
TikTok.
I'm on the ticker.
I just can't figure out how to get anything out of it. I can't.
Well, it's interest-based browsing, but
the young people love it.
They do.
Yeah. I think I've resisted it just because I'm like, it looks like crack. So
yeah. Well, you get it on Instagram Reels. It's just 3 months late.
Yeah, there you go.
That's true. I just get animal videos. It's figured me out
for sure.
All right. Well, thank you both. I'm going to do the little wrap up.
Yeah.
Sure. May not be as long, but people should. By the way, people will be able to check out Bro Code.
Yes.
It will join the Discovering New Film TV series, and hopefully season 8 will be hitting soon. Season 8. I don't know if I told you the season 8 story earlier. I'll tell you when we're not recording because I've said it too many times.
Sure.
And I should stop griping. But and it'll be part of the streaming service.
Yeah.
That I'm about to say may not be called TVHi any very soon.
Okay.
Oh.
And I guess I could explain that. But if you're listening to this, just check the show notes because they will have a link to a streaming service dedicated to excellent indie film and TV and stand-up and dance, all kinds of cool stuff.
Cool. That's awesome.
And it may not be called TVHi anymore, but there will be a link. I'm just going to say it. Should I say it? It might be called the Indie Channel.
Nice.
Yeah, that's great.
Kind of inspired by other things. But anyway. All right, so I will... but Film Invasion Los Angeles, Patrick and Sean were so nice to say nice things about it. It's every June. You can learn more if you go to filminvasionla.com or at filminvasionla on social media. And it's Sister Festival. The only difference is the time of year. Same team, same ethos. That's every December. You can learn more if you go to ShermanOaksFF.com or at ShermanOaksFF on social media. And this podcast, if you're listening, if you are still listening to my voice, if you didn't stop as soon as Patrick and Sean were done talking because you're so sick of me, like and subscribe, write a nice review, do something nice, be nice. And if you want to learn more about this podcast or that TV series on Prime Video I mentioned, just go to discoverindiefilm.com. And if you want to learn about the nonprofit corporation that runs 2 very nice film festivals in LA, that's discoverindiefilm.org. Okay. Hey, I finished.
Terrific.
Sean, Patrick, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening.